My name is Emily, I'm 26 years old, and I've spent my entire life watching my parents give my younger sister everything while I got the leftovers. But nothing prepared me for what happened on my master's degree graduation day, the day that would finally open my parents' eyes to the damage they'd caused. If you've ever been the forgotten child in your family, let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button, and stay for the story about how one rainy morning changed everything. Growing up in the Morrison household meant understanding your place in the family hierarchy. My sister Brooklyn was born when I was 4 years old, and from that moment forward, I became invisible. It wasn't dramatic or obvious. My parents didn't lock me in closets or withhold food. The inequality was subtler, more insidious, woven into the fabric of everyday life. When Brooklyn wanted piano lessons at age 6, my parents immediately found the best instructor in Seattle and bought a brand new baby grand piano for the living room. When I asked for art classes at age 10, my mother sighed and said, "Emily, we can't afford extracurriculars for both of you. Maybe next year." Next year never came. My father, Richard Morrison, was a successful commercial real estate developer who prided himself on being logical and fair. He would have been horrified to think of himself as playing favorites. My mother, Patricia, was a former marketing executive who now focused on managing the household, which mostly meant managing Brooklyn's social calendar and various activities. Brooklyn wasn't cruel to me. She never had to be. She simply existed in the center of our parents' universe, while I orbited somewhere in the outer darkness. She was naturally charismatic, effortlessly beautiful, and had that particular kind of confidence that comes from always being chosen first. I, on the other hand, was practical, studious, the responsible one. These qualities were acknowledged with casual dismissiveness rather than praise. "Emily will figure it out," my parents would say whenever something needed to be handled. She always does. The pattern continued through high school. Brooklyn got a brand new Honda Civic for her 16th birthday, complete with a bow on top and a surprise party. For my 16th birthday, I received a bus pass and a lecture about the importance of environmental responsibility. When Brooklyn wanted to join the expensive traveling soccer team, my parents found the money. When I asked if they could help with my college application fees, they suggested I get a part-time job. So I did. I worked 20 hours a week throughout high school while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. I applied for every scholarship I could find, writing essays late into the night after my shifts at the grocery store. I got myself through the University of Washington's undergraduate program with a combination of merit scholarships, student loans, and that same part-time job that continued through all 4 years. Brooklyn, meanwhile, was finding herself. She dropped out of community college after 1 semester, tried various careers from yoga instructor to social media influencer, and moved back home more times than I could count. Each time, our parents welcomed her with open arms and full financial support. After completing my bachelor's degree in civil engineering, I landed a good job at a Seattle-based infrastructure firm. But I wanted more. I wanted to specialize in sustainable urban development, which meant going back to school for a master's degree. Unlike my undergraduate education, where I'd been able to piece together enough funding to avoid asking my parents for help, graduate school was different. The program I wanted to attend, a specialized master's in sustainable infrastructure at the University of Washington, was competitive and expensive. Even with the partial scholarship I'd earned, I was looking at significant tuition costs. I had saved money for my job, but not nearly enough. That's when I made the mistake of asking my parents for help. I approached the conversation strategically, preparing a presentation with spreadsheets showing my budget, my projected earning potential after graduation, and a repayment plan for any money they might loan me. I emphasized that it was a loan, not a gift, with interest if they wanted. We met in their dining room on a Sunday afternoon. I had barely begun my presentation when my father cut me off. "Emily, you're 24 years old," he said, not unkindly. "You have a good job. You've been supporting yourself for years. I think it's time you continued to stand on your own 2 feet. But I'm not asking for a handout," I protested. "It's a loan. I'll pay back every cent with interest." My mother chimed in, her voice apologetic but firm. Sweetheart, we've spent so much helping Brooklyn get settled. The truth is, we just don't have the liquid assets right now to loan you that kind of money. I sat there, stunned, remembering the brand new luxury car, the endless funded career experiments, the down payment they'd given Brooklyn for her apartment just 6 months earlier. But I didn't argue. I had learned long ago that pointing out the favoritism only led to gaslighting about how I was jealous or keeping score. I understand, I said quietly, gathering my papers. Thank you for your time. I took out additional student loans, picked up freelance consulting work on weekends, and enrolled in the graduate program. For the next 2 years, I worked tirelessly, often sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night between my full-time job, coursework, and freelance projects. It was exhausting, but I was used to fighting for everything I achieved. Brooklyn, meanwhile, had decided she wanted to be a real estate agent. She completed her certification and joined my father's firm, where she was given ready-made clients and all the advantages of nepotism. To hear my parents tell it, she was a natural, a rising star in Seattle's competitive real estate market. I bit my tongue and focused on my own goals. The semester before my graduation, something changed in Brooklyn's life. She started dating Marcus, a tech entrepreneur whose startup had just been acquired by a major corporation. Suddenly, Brooklyn's Instagram was full of designer handbags, fancy restaurant meals, and exotic weekend getaways. And my parents couldn't have been more thrilled. Brooklyn is so happy, my mother gushed during one of our increasingly rare family dinners. Marcus is such a gentleman. His family owns half of Bellevue, you know. What they loved most about Marcus, I suspected, was that he was wealthy enough to take over the financial support of Brooklyn that they'd been providing for years. Not that they'd admit that, of course. 3 months before my graduation, Brooklyn announced at a family dinner that Marcus was taking her to Europe for a month. Rome, Paris, Barcelona, the Greek islands, a grand tour that would cost more than my entire graduate tuition. That sounds amazing, I said, trying to be genuinely happy for her. You'll have a wonderful time. And the best part, Brooklyn squealed, is that Marcus says when we get back, he wants to buy me a car. Like, a really nice one. He's thinking a Tesla. My parents beamed with pride, as if Brooklyn had somehow earned this largesse through her own merit rather than simply dating someone wealthy. How wonderful, my mother said. You deserve nice things, sweetheart. I swallowed the bitter taste in my mouth and excused myself early, claiming I had work to finish. Nobody seemed to notice my departure. 2 weeks later, I received my confirmation letter. I would be graduating with my master's degree in 3 months, with distinction. I had been selected to give a speech at the ceremony as one of the top students in my program. It was a huge honor, the culmination of 2 years of relentless work and sacrifice. I called my parents immediately to share the news. That's nice, dear, my mother said, distracted. Hold on, I'm just texting Brooklyn about bridesmaid dresses. Bridesmaid dresses? I asked, confused. Oh, didn't you hear? Marcus proposed last night. It was so romantic. He hired a helicopter to fly them over the city at sunset. The ring is enormous. Of course he had. Of course Brooklyn was getting married to a millionaire, complete with helicopter proposals and enormous diamonds. And of course that was more important than my academic achievement. Congratulations to Brooklyn, I managed. About my graduation. We'll definitely try to make it, sweetie, my mother interrupted. What day is it again? Saturday, June 15th at 10 a.m. And I'm giving a speech. June 15th, my mother repeated thoughtfully. That's the day of the engagement party. Marcus's parents are hosting it at their estate. My stomach dropped. An engagement party the same day as my graduation? Well, they picked the date first, Emily. These things take months to plan. I'm sure you understand. I've been working toward this degree for 2 years, I said, my voice tight. I'm giving a speech. This is important to me. Of course it is, my father's voice came on the line. They'd switched to speakerphone. And we're very proud of you. But Brooklyn's engagement only happens once. I'm sure your graduation will be wonderful with or without us there. So you're not coming? The words came out flat, emotionless. I had learned not to show hurt to my parents. It only led to lectures about being too sensitive. "We'll try to make both," my mother said in that placating tone she used when she had no intention of following through. "Maybe we can stop by your graduation before heading to the engagement party. The ceremony is 2 hours long, and then there's a reception for graduates and families." "Well, we'll figure something out," my father said dismissively. "We need to go, Emily. We're meeting the wedding planner in 20 minutes. They hung up without saying goodbye. I sat in my apartment, staring at my phone, feeling the familiar ache of being the least important person in my own family. But I was used to this. I would graduate, I would give my speech, and my parents would probably skip it for Brooklyn's party. It hurt, but it wasn't surprising. What happened next, though, that I didn't see coming? A week before my graduation, Brooklyn posted a photo on Instagram that made my blood run cold. It was her, standing next to a brand new, gleaming white Tesla Model S, a giant red bow on the hood. The caption read, "Early wedding gift from mom and dad. They're the absolute best." Automobile red heart hashtag blessed hashtag Tesla life hashtag best parents ever. I stared at the photo, my hands shaking. The car in the picture cost over $90,000. $90,000. They'd given Brooklyn a car worth more than I'd paid in tuition for my entire graduate degree. The degree they'd refused to help me pay for because they didn't have liquid assets. I called my mother, struggling to keep my voice level. "Hi, honey," she answered, sounding distracted as usual. "I saw Brooklyn's Instagram post. You bought her a Tesla. Isn't it beautiful? Your father and I wanted to give her something special. She's been through so much stress with the wedding planning. You bought her a $90,000 car, but you couldn't loan me $20,000 for graduate school?" There was a pause. When my mother spoke again, her voice was defensive. "That's different, Emily. The Tesla is a gift. We would have had to loan you the money, and you know how awkward money between family members can get. So you'll give Brooklyn $90,000 as a gift, but you won't loan me $20,000 that I promised to pay back with interest? You're being ridiculous. Brooklyn needed a reliable car. She had a car. The Honda you bought her 10 years ago still runs perfectly fine. Emily, I don't appreciate your tone. Your sister is getting married. This is a special time in her life. Why must you always make everything about you?" I laughed bitterly. Make everything about me? When have I ever made anything about me? I've paid my own way through everything since I was 16 years old. I've never asked you for anything except one time, and you said no. We've given you plenty over the years, my mother said coldly. Just because we don't hand you expensive gifts doesn't mean we don't support you. Name one thing. One significant thing you've paid for in my adult life. We're not having this conversation, Emily. If you're going to be jealous and spiteful about your sister's happiness, then maybe it's best if you skip the engagement party. I was never planning to attend the engagement party, I said quietly. Because it's the same day as my graduation. Which you're also skipping. We already explained. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up before she could respond. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. I was done. Done hoping they would see me. Done making excuses for their behavior. Done pretending that their treatment of me was normal or acceptable. The next few days passed in a blur of final exams and graduation preparations. I didn't call my parents, and they didn't call me. Brooklyn sent me a text saying she hoped I wasn't being dramatic about the Tesla and that she expected me to get over it before her wedding. I didn't respond. My graduation day arrived unseasonably cold and rainy for mid-June in Seattle. I woke up at 5:30 a.m., my stomach in knots. Despite everything, despite knowing they probably wouldn't show up, some small part of me hoped my parents might surprise me. That they might, for once, choose me. I put on my cap and gown in my apartment, looking at myself in the mirror. I had done this. All of this. Every late night, every sacrifice, every moment of doubt and exhaustion, I had pushed through it all alone. I should have felt proud. Instead, I just felt tired. The graduation ceremony was being held at the university's outdoor amphitheater. When I arrived at 7:30 for the graduate lineup and rehearsal, the rain had intensified to a steady downpour. University staff were scrambling to set up covered walkways and distribute umbrellas. Terrible luck with the weather, said Dr. Martinez, my thesis advisor, as we huddled under a tent. But your speech is going to be wonderful regardless. I had spent weeks writing my speech, revising and practicing until every word felt right. It was about building sustainable cities, about creating infrastructure that would serve not just today's residents, but generations to come. About thinking beyond immediate gratification to long-term impact. The irony wasn't lost on me. At 9:30, as graduates began filing to their seats, I checked my phone one last time. No messages from my parents. No missed calls. Just a text from Brooklyn, sent at 7 a.m., having champagne breakfast before party setup. Wish you were here. Clinking glasses. I turned off my phone and took my place in line. The ceremony began at exactly 10 a.m. Despite the rain, the amphitheater was packed with families, everyone bundled in raincoats and huddling under umbrellas. I scanned the audience during the opening remarks, searching for my parents' faces even though I knew I wouldn't find them. When it was time for my speech, I walked to the podium, my heels clicking against the wet stage. I gripped the microphone stand and looked out at the sea of faces, strangers, mostly, but families who had shown up for their graduates despite the terrible weather. And then I saw him. Standing at the very back, rain-soaked despite the umbrella he held, was my boyfriend, Marcus. No, wait, not my boyfriend. I didn't have a boyfriend. My mind was playing tricks on me. I blinked and looked again. The figure waved. And I realized it was Dr. Chin, my undergraduate advisor from 4 years ago. He'd driven 2 hours from Tacoma to attend my graduation. Beside him was Professor Williams, who'd written one of my recommendation letters. And there, sitting in the third row, were 3 of my colleagues from work, all of whom had taken the morning off to support me. My throat tightened with emotion. These people, who had no obligation to be here, who weren't my family, had shown up for me. In the rain. On a Saturday morning, I began my speech. When I started this program 2 years ago, I said, my voice steady despite the emotions swelling in my chest, I believed that sustainable infrastructure was about concrete and steel, about solar panels and green spaces. I was wrong. I paused, looking out at the audience. Sustainable infrastructure is about people. It's about building systems that support everyone, not just those who are easiest to support. It's about creating frameworks that don't favor one person over another based on arbitrary criteria. It's about equity. The words flowed from me, but I wasn't just talking about urban planning anymore. I was talking about family, about support systems, about what happens when some people are given everything while others are left to build their own foundation from nothing. The most important lesson I've learned in this program didn't come from a textbook, I continued. It came from experiencing what it means to go without support. To build something entirely through your own effort and determination. Because when you've built your own foundation, when you've created your own support structure, you understand exactly how valuable those systems are. You appreciate them. You don't take them for granted. I saw Dr. Chin nodding in the audience. Professor Williams was recording on her phone. To my fellow graduates, I said, my voice stronger now, some of you are here because you had incredible support systems. You had families who invested in your education, who cheered you on, who made this journey easier. You are fortunate, and I hope you recognize that privilege and use it to support others. And some of you are here despite the lack of support. You worked 2 jobs. You took out loans you'll be repaying for years. You missed sleep and sacrificed social lives. You did this alone, or nearly alone. To you, I say this, you are unstoppable. You have already proven that you can build something from nothing. The world should be terrified of what you're capable of achieving. The audience erupted in applause. I hadn't realized I'd finished speaking until I saw everyone standing, clapping, some people wiping their eyes. I stepped back from the podium, my own eyes stinging with tears. After the ceremony, as graduates mingled with their families in the covered reception area, my colleagues swept me into hugs and congratulations. Dr. Chin shook my hand with genuine pride. That was exactly the speech I expected from you, Emily, he said. Honest, insightful, and powerful. Thank you for coming, I said, overwhelmed by the gesture. You didn't have to drive all this way. Of course I did, he replied simply. You were one of my best students. I wanted to see you walk across that stage. As we talked and laughed, sharing stories and taking photos, I felt my phone buzzing in my purse. I ignored it. Whatever it was could wait. This moment, surrounded by people who had chosen to celebrate me, was too precious to interrupt. It wasn't until an hour later, as the crowd began to thin, that I finally checked my messages. 15 missed calls from my mother. 8 from my father. A dozen texts from Brooklyn. And one text from my mother that made my stomach drop. Emily Marie Morrison, call me immediately. You have completely humiliated this family. I stepped outside into the rain, away from the lingering groups of celebrating graduates, and called her back. What were you, T? King? My mother shrieked before I could even say hello. What was that speech? Everyone is talking about it. I don't understand, I said, genuinely confused. It was a speech about sustainable infrastructure and it was a passive-aggressive attack on your family, she snapped. Someone recorded it and posted it online. It's everywhere. Everyone at the engagement party has seen it. You've made us look terrible. I pulled out my phone and opened social media. Sure enough, a video of my speech had been posted by the university's official account. It had been shared thousands of times in just over an hour, with comments flooding in. This young woman is speaking truth to power. This is what real achievement looks like. The part about building your own foundation gave me chills. Imagine being this brilliant and having to do it all alone. I wasn't attacking anyone, I said carefully. I was speaking about equity and support systems in a general sense. Oh, don't play innocent with me, Emily. The entire party heard you talking about how some people get everything handed to them while others have to build from nothing. Brooklyn is in tears. Your father is furious. How could you do this to us? Something inside me snapped. How could I do this to you? I repeated, my voice dangerously quiet. I gave a speech at my own graduation. A graduation you didn't attend because you were too busy throwing a party for Brooklyn with money you claimed you didn't have when I asked for help 2 years ago. That's completely different. You bought Brooklyn a $90,000 car last week. But you couldn't loan me $20,000 for the education I've just completed. An education I completed while working full-time, while taking out massive loans, while sleeping 4 hours a night. And somehow I'm the one who should be ashamed. Your sister needed that car. No, she didn't. She wanted it. There's a difference. And you've never been able to tell the difference when it comes to Brooklyn. I won't listen to you attack your sister. I'm not attacking Brooklyn. I'm stating facts. Facts you've refused to acknowledge my entire life. You've given her everything and me nothing, and you've somehow convinced yourselves that this is fair. That this is normal. We've given you plenty. Name one thing, I challenged. One significant thing you've paid for or provided in my adult life. Silence on the other end of the line. That's what I thought, I said quietly. You can't. Because there isn't anything. And do you know what? I'm okay with that. I've built a good life without your help. I have a master's degree, a job I love, and friends who actually show up for me. What I don't have anymore is the patience to pretend that your treatment of me has been acceptable. Emily, if you're trying to manipulate us into apologizing, I'm not trying to manipulate anyone. I'm simply telling you the truth. A truth you're free to accept or reject. But either way, I'm done pretending the favoritism doesn't exist. So what are you saying? My mother's voice had gone cold. You're cutting us off over a car? This isn't about a car. It's about 26 years of being treated as less important, less deserving, less worthy of support than Brooklyn. The Tesla was just the final, most obvious example. You're being overdramatic, my father's voice came on the line. We've always treated you girls equally. I laughed bitterly. You gave Brooklyn a Tesla. You didn't even come to my graduation. The engagement party was already scheduled. You could have attended both. The graduation was in the morning. The party didn't start until 3 p.m. You chose not to come. Just like you've chosen Brooklyn over me for my entire life. If you're going to speak to us this way, my father said, his voice hard, then maybe it's best if we don't speak at all for a while. Maybe you're right, I agreed, surprising myself with how calm I felt. Maybe some distance would be good for all of us. I hung up before they could respond. For a long moment, I just stood there in the rain, my graduation gown soaked, my cap in my hands. And then I started laughing. Not hysterically, but with genuine relief. I had finally said what I'd been holding inside for years. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Brooklyn. Are you happy now? You've ruined my engagement party with your little speech. Everyone is talking about you instead of me. This is MY Day, and you made it all about you. I hope you're satisfied. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. My graduation speech at my graduation ceremony that I invited you all to attend has nothing to do with your engagement party that you scheduled the same day. The fact that you're making my achievement about you is exactly the problem. Congratulations on your engagement. I genuinely hope you and Marcus are very happy together. I turned off my phone and walked back into the reception hall, where my colleagues and professors were waiting. Everything okay? Dr. Martinez asked, noticing my expression. Everything's fine, I said, and meant it. Actually, everything's better than fine. The next few days were surreal. My graduation speech went viral, truly viral, with millions of views across multiple platforms. News outlets picked it up. Think pieces were written about favoritism in families, the student loan crisis, and the different experiences of siblings based on parental treatment. My inbox exploded with messages from strangers sharing their own stories of being the unfavored child. Others reached out to offer support, job opportunities, and even scholarship funds to help me pay off my student loans. The university contacted me to say that an anonymous donor, touched by my speech, had established a scholarship fund in my name for students pursuing graduate degrees without family financial support. My parents, meanwhile, sent a formal email 3 days after my graduation. Emily, after much discussion, your father and I have decided that your recent behavior has crossed a line. Your public speech was a deliberate attempt to embarrass this family, and we cannot condone it. Until you are ready to apologize to us and to Brooklyn, we think it's best if we maintain our distance. We hope you'll come to your senses soon. Mom and Dad. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the email to my therapist, whom I'd been seeing for a year, paying out of pocket since my parents had removed me from their health insurance when I turned 23, and we discussed it in our next session. How do you feel about their message? Dr. Phillips asked. Relieved, I admitted. Is that terrible? Not at all. You've spent your entire life seeking their approval and recognition. That's exhausting. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do for ourselves is to stop seeking validation from people who are incapable of providing it. 2 weeks after graduation, I was offered a position at a prestigious sustainable development firm in Copenhagen. The salary was excellent, the benefits even better, and it was the kind of opportunity I'd been dreaming about for years. I accepted immediately. When I posted about the new job on social media, congratulations poured in from friends, colleagues, and even strangers who had followed my story. But there was no word from my parents or Brooklyn. 3 months later, as I prepared to move to Denmark, I received an unexpected visitor. Brooklyn showed up at my apartment unannounced, looking uncomfortable and nervous. "Can I come in?" she asked. I hesitated, then stepped aside to let her enter. We sat across from each other in my nearly packed living room, the silence awkward and heavy. "I'm getting married in 2 weeks," Brooklyn finally said. "I know. Congratulations. Are you coming?" "No, Brooklyn. I'm not." She nodded, as if she'd expected that answer. "I read some of the comments on your speech. About how I've always been favored. About how Mom and Dad treat us differently. And I think maybe they're right. Maybe you're right." I waited, saying nothing. "I never thought about it before," she continued, her voice small. "It was just normal to me, you know? I asked for things and they gave them to me. But I never thought about what you were asking for or not getting. It wasn't your job to think about it," I said, not unkindly. "You were a kid. Kids don't create family dynamics, parents do." "But I'm not a kid anymore," Brooklyn said, tears welling in her eyes. "I'm 22 years old, and I'm getting married, and I just realized that my own sister isn't going to be there because I've been complicit in our parents treating her like crap for our entire lives." "Brooklyn, the Tesla was too much," she interrupted. "I know it was. When they gave it to me, I knew. I remembered you asking them for help with grad school. I remembered them saying no. But I took the car anyway because I always take what they give me without thinking about anyone else. What do you want me to say? I asked quietly. I want you to come to my wedding, she said. I want my sister there. I can't, Brooklyn. I'm leaving for Copenhagen in 10 days. And honestly, even if I wasn't, I don't think I'm ready to celebrate with a family that has made me feel invisible my entire life. What if things changed? She asked desperately. What if I talked to mom and dad? What if we all went to family therapy? Do they know you're here? No. Do they know you think they've been unfair to me? Brooklyn looked down. I mentioned it. Dad got angry. Mom said I was being manipulated by your narrative. Then nothing's changed, I said gently. Brooklyn, I don't hate you. I don't hate mom and dad. But I also can't keep setting myself on fire to keep you all warm. I need to build my own life with people who see my value. And right now, that doesn't include this family. Brooklyn left shortly after, crying. I felt guilty but also strangely at peace. I had spoken my truth without anger or bitterness. What they did with that truth was up to them. The day before my flight to Copenhagen, I received a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Emily Morrison, a man's voice asked. Yes, my name is Robert Chin. I'm an attorney handling the estate of Dr. Henry Morrison. My grandfather. My father's father, who had passed away 6 months earlier. We'd never been particularly close, but he'd been kind to me in his quiet way. I'm sorry, is there a problem? I asked. No problem. I'm calling because Dr. Morrison named you as a beneficiary in his will. He left you $75,000, specifically designated to pay off any remaining student loans. The remainder is to be used however you see fit. I nearly dropped the phone. Are you certain? Did he mean Brooklyn? No, ma'am. He was very specific. Emily Morrison. He included a letter for you. The letter arrived 2 days after I landed in Copenhagen. I opened it in my new apartment, surrounded by moving boxes, and read my grandfather's words. Dear Emily, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're probably surprised. I was never the demonstrative type, but I noticed. I noticed how hard you worked. I noticed how you put yourself through school. I noticed that while your sister was being handed everything, you were building your own life with no help from anyone. Your father is my son, and I love him, but he's made mistakes. The way he's favored Brooklyn over you is one of those mistakes. I tried to talk to him about it over the years, but he couldn't see it. Some parents can't. This money is to pay off your student loans and give you a foundation to build on. You've already proven you can succeed without help. Now I want to see what you can do with a little support. Be proud of what you've accomplished. I certainly am. Your grandfather, Henry. I cried reading that letter. Someone had seen me. Someone had noticed. And though it came too late for us to have a real relationship, it meant everything. I used the money exactly as my grandfather intended. My student loans were paid off completely. The remaining funds went into savings, a safety net I'd never had before. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly free. My life in Copenhagen has been everything I hoped it would be. I work on projects that matter, designing infrastructure for cities of the future. I've made friends who value me for who I am, not who I'm related to. I've started dating a Danish architect named Jacob who thinks my work ethic is admirable rather than threatening. My parents and I haven't spoken in over a year. Brooklyn texts occasionally, mostly superficial updates about her life. I respond politely but don't engage deeply. We're like distant acquaintances now rather than sisters. Sometimes people ask if I regret the estrangement from my family. The honest answer is no. What I regret is the years I spent hoping they would see me, value me, treat me as equal to Brooklyn. That was wasted energy. What I don't regret is standing up for myself. Speaking my truth. Refusing to accept crumbs while they handed Brooklyn the whole cake. The most surprising outcome of my viral speech has been the community it created. I've connected with thousands of people who shared similar experiences, the overlooked children, the self-made successes, the ones who built their own foundations because no one else would build it for them. We support each other now. We celebrate each other's victories. We remind each other that our worth isn't determined by how our families treated us. And that's worth more than any Tesla. If you're watching this and you're the forgotten child in your family, please know you are not invisible. You are not less than. You are not unworthy of support. Your family's inability to see your value says everything about them and nothing about you. Build your own foundation. Surround yourself with people who show up for you in the rain. Create your own support system. And remember that the most sustainable infrastructure isn't made of concrete and steel. It's made of self-respect, boundaries, and the courage to walk away from people who diminish you. Have you experienced favoritism in your family? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else feel less alone. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe. And remember, you deserve people who celebrate you, not people who make you walk to your own graduation. Thank you for listening.